This is an overview of my probably 1976-ish Fender Musicmaster bass amp. This is what it sounds like now after we're pretty much done working on it. I apologize, the wiring side's still a little sloppy. You probably got to open it up and clean that up a bit. In my opinion, it came out pretty good. This is a parts caster with Seymour Duncan La Brea, Brad Paisley type pickups in it. Probably 1976-ish Fender Musicmaster amp. What we're going to do is change it a little bit. So what we did is we got rid of that 15K resistor across the input of the interstage transformer, put a 100K resistor, plate bias resistor in there to bias the second stage, and a normal 1.5K cathode resistor in there, and we coupled it to the interstage transformer with a 0.047. Because I was trying to get a little more bass through it, so that really didn't change anything at first. But then after I realized that the tone control, the tweed tone control actually cuts a lot of the bass out, so I went back to just a standard. That's just that cap to ground, so it's a treble cut. Works really good. I got all my bass back when I took the other cap off of there. That made it tweedish. And the other thing we had done earlier was so basically what we did then, the two stages, the two gain stages are actually identical now. 100K plate resistors, 1.5K cathode resistors, and this is a 0.022 orange cap rather than the 0.047, so that's slightly different. I didn't want it to be too fat, and I decided I wanted it to be slightly variable in gain, so we've got a couple of 22 microfarad cathode bias capacitors in it, but they're controlled by this switch on the front panel. So down, both capacitors are out of the circuit. The middle position adds the first gain stage cathode bypass cap, and all the way up it gives you both cathode bypass caps. So that got it to start sounding pretty good, but it was still kind of noisy and stuff, so I did a little more research, and what I had done with my Fender Blues Junior was something that somebody recommended to beef up the power supply. So what you do there is the first gain stage, you put one of these 100 microfarad caps in, and after that I have a 20 microfarad, and in the final stage of decoupling, 10 microfarad. And between the 100 microfarad and 20 microfarad, there's a 1K resistor, And then we have a 4.7, 1K resistor, 4.7K resistor for decoupling to the 10 microfarad on the filtering stage of the 12AXM. And the other thing that we did, that these amps, I mean, they're not wired all that well, and they didn't have any twisted pairs going to the filaments. So I disconnected the grain wires from the transformer and I mean, not from the transformer, from the tube, from this tube, and twisted them so they make a nice twisted pair, and then twisted these over. I had to use different ones. Well, actually I used the ones that make this big jump to twist into here, and I made new black and white twisted pair wires, tucked them up in the back shelf here, get them out of the way, and still had this persistent kind of hum going on. And I had watched one of the Guitologist's videos a long time ago. He had an old Epiphone amplifier, and he showed this, and when I rewatched it the other day, and it reminded me of this. And so the way these were hooked up, so on a normal 60s Fender amp, you'll have two 1K resistors in here that go to either side of the 6.3 volt filament supply, and they connect together and they connect to ground. That creates kind of a artificial center tap for the 6.3 volt supply, and basically that balances your filaments, so I mean noise wise. And these amps don't have that. What they do, like in this old Epiphone, is they daisy chain to the tubes, the filaments, and then they have at the final tube, they have one side soldered to ground. So I clipped that off, and I didn't have 100 ohm resistors that were like 2 watts, so I had some really nice precision 75 ohm. They're probably more than 2 watt resistors. So I mean, it's a little messy, but they're in there, and they're just connected on the output tube there. So this is our point for grounding the 6.3 volt supply here. And another thing, as far as power supply grounding goes, we separated the first filter stage and the power supply ground. That's this guy here. So this is connected to this ground point right here, and that is also where the cathode bias resistor and cathode bypass capacitor are grounded. So they're all grounded to the same spot. Everything else in the signal chain is grounded here, which eventually goes to the input jack. And that's made this amp, those two things really made this amp a whole lot quieter. The other thing I did, which is kind of a little over the top, is, well, I did it because I had a transformer. I swapped out the power transformer. The stock Musicman transformer is really small. Plate voltage, maximum plate voltage you get to the output tubes is like 290. I think I rated 294 in this one. So I had this one laying around, which was out of another, I think it was out of another 6V6 stereo amp or something like that. It fit right in there, same bolt pattern and everything, but now I've got more like 315 volts on the plate, which gives it a bit more clean headroom, which is what I was looking for with this amp. And I think it's about it for the electronics side of it. It has a set of matched old Phillips 6V6s, and I forget what kind of 12AX7 in there. Also, I put a Stratocaster jack. I just mounted it up in there so you can easily connect and disconnect the speaker. Oh, and because I changed the transformer, the stock transformer has it doesn't have a fuse, it's a thermal reactor thing. So if you pull too much current through it, it pops, and then you've got to unravel the transformer to replace it. Which I've done that before, and it's no fun. So I just drilled a hole and put a normal fuse socket in there. So, and these already come with a 3-prong plug because it's a mid-70s amplifier. And this is the cabinet here. So you look at it, it's actually a really nice kind of cabinet. You would expect it to sound good, but it never really did. So I've tried this amp in a lot of other cabinets, and right now the way I have it is it sounds really good. But this cabinet still sounds a little boxy, and years ago I had done this to it, which I thought would really fix things up a little bit, but I mean, it probably only minorly improved it. These came with a particle board baffle board, which is very dead sounding. I mean, it's still a pine cabinet, it just has this dead sounding baffle board in it. So I made this baffle board. This is actually, 5-ply Baltic birch plywood, and it's got a Celestian green back in it. And it's still a little boxy sounding. I had to, these are basically hardwood scraps that I used to attached inside this side, and across the bottom there, so I could attach the baffle board to it. And the latest thing that I did was a few weeks ago, I took the back panel off of it, used some more hardwood scraps, and attached this plank to the back of it to kind of give the speaker something to reflect off of. I mean, it sounds better, but there's still, other cabinets that I have that sound better than this. But hey, it's one of the things I found is it's hard to get a small cabinet to sound like a good big cabinet. Well, that's that. We'll get this thing put back in there, and maybe we'll do a sound check on it. It actually does sound really pretty good now. I mean, these were kind of inexpensive amps back in the day, but they were, they're still hand-wired tube amps, so you can go in there if you're comfortable with dealing with tube amplifiers. You can go in there and change what you want to get it to sound the way you want it. And that's basically what this one is. I also used some shielded cable on the signal paths that go from the front panel back, because they're long runs, shield the noise out of them. This has looks like a 56K resistor going from the input jack to the grid. There's also a 1 meg resistor from the hot side of this to ground for a grid load resistor. And I think these are both 500K pots, I forget which. But that's that.